The room was quiet, but it was the kind of quiet that felt loud. Ruth stood in the hallway of the giant mansion, her red dress clinging to her skin from the rain outside. Her chest rose and fell fast. She had run back in because her heart refused to accept what she just heard. That her own mother sold her. That this marriage was not love. That she was a pawn. She wiped her face with the back of her hand and stared at the golden lights on the walls. Everything looked expensive. Everything looked perfect. But nothing felt safe. Somewhere far ahead, she heard the soft roll of wheels on polished floor. She followed the sound. When she reached the ballroom again, she saw him. Ezra, the crippled trillionaire. He was sitting in the wheelchair near the window, staring into the dark garden like he was watching for danger. His hands were tight on the armrests. His jaw looked locked. He was not smiling. He did not look like a man about to get married. He looked like a man waiting for a judge. Ruth swallowed hard and walked closer. Ezra, she said, her voice shaking. He did not turn immediately. When he finally looked at her, Ruth felt something twist inside her. His eyes were red, like he had not slept. Like he had been fighting tears and losing. You came back, Ezra whispered. Ruth's lips trembled. Of course I came back. I need the truth. Not half-truth. Not shameful silence. The whole truth. Ezra looked away again. That hurt more than words. Ruth's anger rose like fire. Look at me, she snapped. Ezra flinched, then slowly lifted his face. Ruth pointed at him. Did you know? Did you know my mother and your family planned this like business? Ezra's throat moved as he swallowed. Yes, he said. That one word hit Ruth like a slap. Her eyes widened. So you lied to my face. Ezra's voice broke. I didn't know at first. I found out later. Ruth laughed once, bitter. Later is still before today. Before I walked into this house in front of strangers. Before I wore this dress like a fool. Ezra reached his hand out toward her, slowly, careful like she was glass. Ruth stepped back fast. Don't touch me, she said, her voice trembling. Ezra's hand fell back to the armrest, heavy like he was tired of everything. I'm sorry, he said again. Ruth shook her head. Sorry doesn't fix betrayal. A soft clap came from behind. Ruth turned. Gabriel stood near the staircase, smiling like he was watching a movie he enjoyed. His suit was perfect. His hair was neat. His eyes were cold. You're doing well, Gabriel said. Most girls cry and faint. You're still standing. Ruth's hands clenched. Where is my mother? Gabriel's smile didn't move. Safe. Ruth took a step toward him. Safe where? Gabriel tilted his head. Safe enough for her to stay quiet. Ruth's heart jumped. What did you do to her? Gabriel sighed like Ruth was annoying him. We didn't do anything. She did it to herself when she signed the agreement. Ruth's stomach turned. Ezra's voice came out rough. Stop it, Gabriel. Gabriel walked closer, calm and slow. Why? She deserves to know what kind of world she married into. Ruth snapped. I didn't marry anyone. Gabriel smiled. Not yet. That word, yet, made Ruth's skin crawl. Ruth looked back at Ezra. Why did you agree? Why did you let them pick me? Ezra's eyes tightened like he was holding back something painful. I tried to refuse, Ezra said. They didn't care. Ruth scoffed. You're a trillionaire. Ezra's voice turned hard. Money doesn't make you free in my family. Ruth stared at him, trying to read his face. Trying to decide if he was victim or liar. Gabriel stepped in again, voice smooth. Ruth, let me tell you something you haven't understood yet. Ruth glared. I'm not listening to you. Gabriel chuckled. You will. Because your life depends on it. Ruth's breathing slowed. My life. Gabriel leaned slightly forward. This marriage is not for love. It's for protection. Ezra is crippled, yes, but that's not the main problem. Ruth looked at Ezra's legs. Ezra's face tightened with shame. Ruth's voice lowered. Then what is the main problem? Gabriel's eyes glittered. Ezra is trapped. He is the face of the empire. But he is not the one who controls it. Ruth frowned. Then who controls it? Gabriel's smile vanished. He glanced toward the dark hallway behind the ballroom. Just one glance. But it felt like a warning. Then he looked back at Ruth. His father, Gabriel said softly. Even from a sickbed. Ezra's fingers curled into fists. Ruth's heart pounded. So Ezra is just a puppet. Ezra's voice came out like pain. Ruth. Ruth stepped closer, tears filling her eyes now. All this time, your sweet messages, your calls, your promises, was it fake? Ezra shook his head fast. No. That part was real. Ruth's tears dropped. That made it worse. Because real love mixed with betrayal hurts deeper. Gabriel clapped again, slower this time. Ah, that's the tragedy. He actually likes you. Ruth turned sharply. Shut up. Gabriel shrugged. It doesn't matter what he likes. The deal is bigger than his feelings. Ruth's voice cracked. What deal? Gabriel reached into his pocket and pulled out a phone. He tapped it once. The huge TV screen in the ballroom lit up. Ruth's breath stopped. A video appeared. Her mother Naomi was on the screen. Her hair was messy. Her face was swollen like she had been crying. She was sitting at a table in a plain room, with two men standing behind her. Naomi's eyes lifted to the camera. And when she spoke, her voice sounded like it was shaking from fear. Ruth, baby, please forgive me. Ruth stumbled forward. Mama. Ezra's face went pale. Gabriel's voice was quiet beside Ruth. Now you will understand. You can't walk away. Naomi swallowed hard on the screen, tears spilling. Then she said the words that froze Ruth's blood. They have your father. Ruth's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Because before she could even think, the ballroom doors behind her slammed shut. And she heard the sound of many footsteps rushing in. Subscribe to this channel to support our growth. The doors slammed so hard the sound echoed through Ruth's chest. She jumped and spun around. Men in black suits filled the room. Not rushing. Not shouting. Just walking in slowly like they owned the air, the walls, and everyone inside. Ruth's heart beat so loud she thought they could hear it. She turned back to the screen. Mama, she cried. Mama, what do you mean they have Daddy? Naomi on the screen began to sob. I didn't want this for you, Naomi said, shaking her head again and again. I didn't. They said they would destroy us. They said they would take everything. They said your father would disappear. Ruth's knees almost gave way. Disappear. That word scared her more than death. Ezra rolled his wheelchair forward without thinking. Naomi, stop, he said sharply. This has gone far enough. One of the men behind Naomi leaned forward, his shadow covering her face. Careful, Ezra, the man said calmly. You don't give orders anymore. Ezra froze. Ruth stared at him. That moment told her everything. Ezra was not in control. Never had been. Gabriel stepped closer to Ruth and placed a hand lightly on her shoulder, like a friend. She flinched. Easy, Gabriel said softly. You don't want to make things worse for your family. Ruth slapped his hand away. Don't touch me. Gabriel raised both hands, smiling. Fair enough. Ruth faced the screen again, tears running freely now. Mama, where is Daddy? Naomi looked down. That silence was the answer. Ruth screamed, Where is he? The screen suddenly went black. No, Ruth cried, rushing toward it. The lights in the ballroom flickered once, then stayed on. Ruth turned slowly. Her chest burned. Her hands shook. She looked at Ezra. He looked broken. What did you do? Ruth asked him, her voice low and shaking. Ezra swallowed hard. I swear to you, I didn't touch your father. Ruth laughed bitterly. But you knew they could. Ezra closed his eyes. Yes. That was enough. Ruth felt something snap inside her. She had cried. She had begged. She had been shocked. Now she was angry. Real angry. She turned to Gabriel. You think this makes me stay? Gabriel tilted his head. I think it makes you smart. Ruth stepped closer to him, fearless now. You think trapping my family will make me obedient? Gabriel's smile faded just a little. It already has. Ruth shook her head. You don't know me. Gabriel studied her face. You're right, he said slowly. But I will. Ezra spoke suddenly, voice sharp. Leave her alone. Gabriel turned to him, annoyed. You're still pretending to be her protector? Ezra's hands gripped the wheels. This was not the deal. Gabriel laughed. This was always the deal. You just didn't read the fine print. Ruth looked between them. What deal? Ezra hesitated. That hesitation told her more lies were coming. Tell me, Ruth demanded. Ezra's voice dropped. If I married you, my father would keep your family safe. Ruth stared. Safe from what? Ezra didn't answer. Gabriel answered for him. From the people your father owes. Ruth's heart pounded. My father is a teacher. Gabriel smiled thinly. Your father is a man who once helped the wrong people move money through the right places. Ruth shook her head. You're lying. Gabriel shrugged. Your mother signed because she knows it's true. Ruth's world spun. Ezra whispered. I didn't know about that part. Ruth turned on him. You didn't know, but you still agreed to marry me. Ezra's voice cracked. I thought I could protect you. Ruth wiped her tears angrily. Protection doesn't start with lies. One of the men in suits stepped forward and handed Gabriel a tablet. Gabriel glanced at it, then looked at Ruth. "We don't have all night." Ruth crossed her arms. "What now?" Gabriel's tone turned businesslike. "You have two choices." Ruth laughed. "Funny. You just told me I had none." Gabriel leaned closer. "You can walk out that door right now." Ruth's heart jumped. Ezra's eyes widened. "Gabriel." Gabriel raised a finger. "But if you walk out, your father stays missing." Silence. Ruth's breath caught. Gabriel continued calmly. "Or you stay. You finish the ceremony. You smile for the cameras. And your family stays alive." Ezra whispered, "Don't do this." Ruth looked at Ezra. Really looked. She saw fear. She saw regret. She saw weakness. She also saw something else. Truth. "You knew I would hate you," Ruth said quietly. Ezra nodded. "Yes. And you did it anyway." "Yes." That hurt more than the threat. Ruth turned away from him. She walked slowly toward the giant windows, rain tapping against the glass like fingers. Her reflection stared back at her. A bride in red. A woman sold. A daughter trapped. She placed her hand on the cold glass and spoke softly. "You think you won." Gabriel watched her carefully. "I think you're smart enough to survive." Ruth turned back, her face calm now. Too calm. "Fine," she said. "I'll stay." Ezra's head snapped up. "Ruth, no." Ruth raised her hand. "But hear me." Gabriel smiled again. "I'm listening." Ruth met his eyes. "I will smile. I will stand beside him. I will play your game." Gabriel nodded, pleased. Ruth's voice hardened. "But I will learn everything. Every secret. Every lie. Every name." Gabriel chuckled. "That's cute." Ruth smiled for the first time. It wasn't sweet. "And when I'm done," she said softly, "you will wish my mother never gave birth to me." Gabriel's smile froze. Just for a second. Then footsteps echoed from the hallway again. Fast. Urgent. One of the men whispered into Gabriel's ear. Gabriel's eyes widened slightly. He looked at Ruth. "Looks like the night just got more interesting." Ezra's face went pale. "What is it?" The man swallowed. "Sir, your father is awake." The room went dead silent. Ezra's hands began to shake. And Ruth felt a cold fear crawl up her spine. Because she knew one thing. If Ezra's father was awake, everything was about to change. Subscribe to this channel to support our growth. The room felt like it stopped breathing. Your father is awake. Those words sat in the air like a curse. Ezra's hands shook so badly the wheelchair rattled. His face drained of color, and for the first time since Ruth met him, he looked truly afraid. "Awake," Ezra whispered. "That's not possible." Gabriel slowly turned to the man who delivered the message. "Are you sure?" The man nodded. "He's asking questions. Dangerous ones." Ruth felt a cold chill crawl up her back. She didn't even know Ezra's father, but she could feel his shadow already. If this man controlled everything from a sickbed, what would he do now that his eyes were open? Ezra suddenly rolled his chair backward. "We have to stop the ceremony." The word ceremony hit Ruth like a slap. She turned to him sharply. "You're still thinking about the wedding?" Ezra looked up at her, panic in his eyes. "Ruth, if my father wakes fully, everything changes. He doesn't compromise. He doesn't negotiate." Gabriel laughed quietly. "Relax. The old man is weak. He can barely speak." Ezra snapped. "You don't know that." Ruth watched the brothers stare each other down. One calm and smiling. The other trapped in a chair, shaking with fear. This was not a love story. This was a war. Gabriel clapped his hands once. "Enough. We move forward." Ruth crossed her arms. "Move forward to where?" Gabriel turned to her. "To the altar." Her stomach twisted. Ezra shook his head. "No. Not like this." Gabriel's voice hardened. "You don't get to say no." Ezra's jaw tightened. "I am still the groom." Gabriel leaned down so his face was close to Ezra's. "You are still the asset." Ruth stepped between them before Ezra could respond. "Stop," she said firmly. Both men looked at her. Her heart was racing, but she stood tall. "If you want me to stand there and smile like your perfect bride, then you will answer my questions." Gabriel studied her. "You're bold." Ruth didn't blink. "I'm angry." Gabriel smiled slowly. "Ask." Ruth took a breath. "Where is my father?" Gabriel didn't answer right away. Ezra's voice came out low. "Gabriel." Gabriel sighed. "He's alive." Ruth's shoulders sagged in relief for half a second. "Where?" she pressed. Gabriel replied calmly, "Somewhere safe." Ruth laughed bitterly. You people love that word. Ezra spoke quickly. Ruth, I swear on my life, your father is breathing. She looked at him. Breathing is not living. Silence. Gabriel glanced at his watch. Time is slipping. Ruth stepped closer to Ezra, lowering her voice so only he could hear. You said you wanted to protect me. Ezra nodded weakly. I do. Then start now, Ruth said. Tell me the truth. All of it. Ezra swallowed hard. If my father wakes fully, he will cancel the marriage. Ruth's eyes widened. Cancel? Yes, Ezra said. And when he cancels deals, people disappear. Ruth felt dizzy. So marrying me is keeping people alive. Ezra closed his eyes. Yes. That truth hurt worse than lies. Gabriel interrupted. Enough whispering. Suddenly, loud music began to play from the speakers. Soft and romantic. Fake happiness filled the room. Guests outside the ballroom doors began to clap. The ceremony was starting. Ruth's heart pounded. You're doing this now? Gabriel nodded. Before my father changes his mind. Ezra grabbed Ruth's wrist gently. If you run, they will hurt your family. Ruth pulled her hand free. If I stay, they will use me. Ezra whispered, I know. That broke her heart more than anything else. Two women approached Ruth with forced smiles. Time to fix your makeup. Ruth didn't move. I said no, she snapped. Gabriel raised a brow. Ruth. She turned to him. You promised answers. Gabriel smiled thinly. You'll get them. After. Ruth shook her head. After never comes with men like you. Ezra suddenly slammed his hand on the armrest. Enough. Everyone froze. Ezra's voice shook but carried power. I won't marry her like this. Gabriel stared at him. Careful. Ezra continued, breathing hard. I will go to my father. Gabriel laughed. You can't even stand. Ezra looked up at Ruth. Help me. The room went silent again. All eyes turned to her. Help him. The man who lied. The man who knew. The man who still let her walk into this nightmare. Ruth hesitated. Then she did something no one expected. She bent down and locked the wheelchair brakes. Gabriel frowned. What are you doing? Ruth looked straight at him. I'm choosing. She turned to Ezra. You want to face your father? Ezra nodded. Then you won't do it sitting down, Ruth said. Gasps filled the room. Ezra stared at her. Ruth. She held his arm. Stand. Gabriel snapped. Stop this nonsense. Ruth ignored him. Ezra's hands trembled as he grabbed her shoulder. He pushed with everything he had. Pain crossed his face. His legs shook. For a moment, it looked impossible. Then slowly, Ezra stood. The room exploded with whispers. Ezra cried out in pain but stayed upright, leaning heavily on Ruth. Ruth felt his weight, his fear, his strength. For the first time, she saw the man behind the empire. Gabriel's smile vanished. Sit down. Ezra looked at him, breathing hard. No. Ruth felt something shift inside her. This wasn't love. But it was truth. Suddenly, a deep voice echoed from the doorway. Let them come. Everyone turned. An old man was being pushed into the room on a hospital bed. Machines beeped softly. Ezra's father. His eyes were open. Sharp. Watching everything. Ruth's blood ran cold. The old man looked at Ruth. Then at Ezra standing. A slow smile crept onto his face. So, the old man said weakly, this is the girl. Ruth held Ezra tighter. The old man's eyes darkened. And you, he said to Ezra, have disappointed me. Ezra's knees buckled. Ruth caught him. The old man lifted a finger. Bring the bride. Men moved forward. Ruth backed away. No, she said firmly. The old man smiled. You don't say no to me. Ruth's heart raced, but she stood tall. Watch me. The old man laughed softly, then coughed hard. When he spoke again, his voice was ice. If she doesn't marry you tonight, her father dies before sunrise. Ruth felt the world crash around her. Ezra cried out, Father, please. The old man cut him off. Choose. Ruth felt trapped. Used. Broken. But inside her, something dangerous woke up. She looked at the old man and spoke calmly. Then I will marry him, she said. Everyone exhaled. But, Ruth continued, not as your pawn. The old man raised a brow. Then what? Ruth met his gaze. As your problem. The room went silent. The old man studied her. Then he smiled. The worst kind of smile. Interesting, he said. Very interesting. Ruth felt Ezra's hand tighten around hers. She didn't know what tomorrow held. But she knew one thing. This family had just underestimated her. and they were about to regret it. Subscribe to this channel to support our growth. The old man's smile stayed on his face as the room slowly filled with noise again. Music returned. Soft, gentle, fake. The guests clapped, relieved like danger had passed. But Ruth knew better. Ezra's father watched her like she was a puzzle he wanted to break. "Take your place," the old man said weakly. "Let us finish this." Ruth helped Ezra back into his wheelchair. His body shook from pain and fear. When he looked up at her, his eyes were full of questions. "Are you sure?" he whispered. Ruth leaned close so only he could hear. "No, but I won't let them destroy my family." Ezra swallowed. "I'm sorry." She didn't answer, because sorry was no longer enough. They rolled him toward the altar. Ruth walked beside him. Every step felt heavy. The priest smiled nervously. He had been paid well to ask no questions. The old man was positioned where he could see everything. Gabriel stood nearby, arms crossed, watching Ruth closely. Ruth lifted her chin. She refused to look scared. The priest began speaking. Words about love. Words about unity. Words that felt like lies. Ruth's mind raced. Her father was still missing. Her mother was trapped. Ezra was broken. And this family thought they owned her. The priest turned to Ezra. "Do you take Ruth to be your lawful wife?" Ezra hesitated. The old man's eyes sharpened. Ezra's voice shook. "I." Ruth spoke first. "He does." Gasps rippled through the room. Ezra turned to her. "Ruth." She met his eyes. "We'll survive this." The priest cleared his throat and turned to Ruth. "And do you take Ezra?" "Yes," Ruth said firmly. The old man smiled again. That smile made Ruth's skin crawl. The rings were brought forward. Cold gold. Heavy. Ezra's hands trembled as he slid the ring onto Ruth's finger. Ruth felt like iron closed around her. Then it was her turn. She placed the ring on Ezra's finger. Their eyes met. Something silent passed between them. Not love. Not yet. But understanding. The priest raised his hands. "By the power vested in me." The doors slammed open. Everyone jumped. A woman's voice rang out. "Stop!" Ruth's heart stopped. She knew that voice. "Mama!" Ruth shouted. Naomi ran into the ballroom, hair loose, dress wrinkled, eyes wild. Two men chased her, but she slipped free and kept running. "Don't do this!" Naomi cried. "Ruth, please don't!" The room exploded into chaos. Gabriel shouted, "Grab her!" Ezra's father slammed his hand weakly on the bed. "Enough!" The men froze. Naomi fell to her knees in front of Ruth. Tears streamed down her face. "I'm sorry," Naomi sobbed. "I'm so sorry." Ruth stared at her. Pain, anger, love, all twisted together. "You sold me," Ruth said quietly. Naomi shook her head violently. "I was trying to save your father." Ruth's voice broke. "By destroying me?" Naomi looked up, shame filling her eyes. "I didn't think you would be hurt like this." Ruth laughed through tears. "You didn't think at all." Ezra's father watched the scene closely. Then he spoke. "This is getting emotional," he said calmly. "Remove her." Naomi screamed, "No." Men moved forward. Ruth stepped in front of her mother. "No," Ruth said firmly. The room went silent. Ruth faced Ezra's father. "You wanted a wife," Ruth said. "You got one. But I am not your slave." The old man's eyes narrowed. "Careful." Ruth didn't back down. "Release my father." A murmur spread through the guests. Gabriel snapped, "This is not the time." Ruth cut him off. "It is exactly the time." Ezra looked at his father. "Please." The old man studied Ruth. Then he laughed softly. "You are brave," he said. "But brave people die first." Ruth's heart pounded. Then a voice came from the doorway. "Not today." A tall man walked in, calm and steady. Ruth's breath caught. "Daddy," she whispered. Her father stood there. Alive. Bruised. But standing. Ruth ran to him, throwing her arms around him. He held her tight. "I'm okay." The old man's smile vanished. "Impossible," he whispered. Ruth turned back, fire in her eyes. "You lost," she said. Sirens wailed in the distance. Police lights flashed through the windows. Guests gasped and began to panic. Gabriel backed away slowly. "Father?" Ezra's father stared at Ruth. "You planned this," he said. Ruth nodded. "I learned fast." Ezra looked at her, shocked. "How?" Ruth met his eyes. "You taught me. By showing me what betrayal looks like." Police flooded the room. Orders were shouted. Handcuffs clicked. Gabriel tried to run. He didn't get far. Ezra's father closed his eyes as officers surrounded him. As he was wheeled away, he looked at Ruth one last time. "You will regret this," he said quietly. Ruth held Ezra's hand. "Maybe," she replied. "But not today." The ballroom emptied. Silence returned. Ezra looked at Ruth, eyes full. "You saved them." Ruth nodded. "I saved myself too." Ezra whispered. "What happens now?" Ruth took a deep breath. "Now," she said, "we rebuild. If you want to." Ezra smiled weakly. "I want to." Ruth looked at the ring on her finger. It still felt heavy. But now it felt like choice. Not chains. Subscribe to this channel to support our growth.